Ambassador Kim Dae walked slowly through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber. The room was so large that Earth's biggest stadium could fit inside it 3 times over. Above him, the ceiling stretched up like a dark sky filled with tiny lights from 1,000 different worlds. The air smelled strange, like metal and electricity mixed with something sweet he couldn't name. He was a small man by human standards, wearing a simple black suit that looked plain compared to the incredible technology around him. His briefcase was made of old leather, and he carried actual paper documents. The other beings in the room had floating screens, holographic displays, and devices that seemed to think for themselves. Kim Dae took his seat at a tiny desk that seemed almost forgotten in the corner. The 5 most powerful civilizations in the galaxy sat in grand positions around a circular platform in the center. Each group had brought hundreds of advisors, military officers, and scientists. Kim Dae had brought only his aide, Park Jin, who sat quietly behind him. The Vortak Empire controlled more than 3,000 star systems. Their representative was 9 feet tall, covered in black armor-like skin, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red in the dim light. When it spoke, its mouth clicked and buzzed like a giant insect. It had been talking for 20 minutes about how humans should be grateful for this opportunity to serve. 15% of all the metal, food and energy your planet makes will be sent to us every year, the Vortak said, its voice echoing through the chamber. You will also give us 50,000 of your young people to fight in our wars. This is not a request. The Stellar Dominion representative was harder to look at directly. It appeared to be made of pure light and energy, constantly changing colors from blue to white to gold. When it laughed at something, the Vortak said the sound was like wind chimes in a storm. Such a cute little species, the energy being said, its voice coming from everywhere at once. They barely learned to travel between stars 50 years ago. Look at their primitive ship parked outside. It probably took them months just to reach us. The Iron Hegemony spoke next, but it wasn't just one voice. Hundreds of cybernetic beings connected their minds to speak as one, creating a sound like a mechanical choir. Half their bodies were metal, half were flesh, and their eyes glowed with computer screens. Our scans show their technology is at least 500 years behind ours, they said together. Their weapons are simple chemical explosives. Their computers are basic. They cannot even create artificial gravity properly. Kim Dae continued to smile politely, occasionally nodding as if he found their observations fascinating rather than insulting. The Void Hunter's representative kept changing shape as it spoke. Sometimes it looked like a tall humanoid figure, sometimes like a flowing liquid shadow, sometimes like a creature with too many teeth and claws. Its voice changed too, sometimes deep and threatening, sometimes high and mocking. Earth sits in a perfect location along the major trade routes, it said while its form rippled like water. Your people will provide excellent workers for our mining operations on hostile planets. Humans seem quite resilient for such a weak species. The Celestial Republic had been around for over 10,000 years. Their ambassador looked like an elderly human but with pale purple skin and eyes that seemed to hold starlight. When it spoke, Kim Dae felt a slight pressure in his mind, as if something was trying to read his thoughts. Young species often resist these arrangements at first, the psionic being said in a voice that sounded both ancient and tired. But you will learn, as others have learned, that cooperation with your superiors brings peace and prosperity. Fighting us brings only suffering. For 3 hours, they had discussed humanity's future without asking Kim Dae for his opinion. They talked about which human cities would make good military bases, which resources Earth had that they wanted, and how many humans would need to be relocated to work in their factories and mines. Finally, the Vortak turned its red eyes toward Kim Dae. These terms are generous, human. Most species in your position receive far worse treatment. You have 1 week to accept. Kim Dae stood up slowly, still smiling the same warm, friendly smile he had worn since arriving. Honored representatives, humanity is deeply grateful for your interest in our small world. We are, of course, impressed by the power and wisdom you have shown us today. He picked up his leather briefcase and straightened his simple tie. We would like to request some time to properly consider these terms and discuss them with our people back home. Such an important decision should not be made hastily. The insectoid creature made a sound like grinding metal mixed with laughter. Consider quickly, little human. We have destroyed entire civilizations for taking too long to answer. Our patience has limits. Of course, Kim Dae replied, bowing slightly with perfect courtesy. We wouldn't dream of keeping such important beings waiting longer than necessary. We understand how valuable your time must be. As he walked toward the exit, still carrying his primitive paper documents, the other representatives whispered among themselves about humanity's certain submission. Kim Dae could hear their quiet laughter and comments about how easily humans would break under pressure. Back on his small diplomatic ship, Park Jin was pacing nervously in the tiny cabin they shared. The vessel was nothing compared to the massive warships and luxury cruisers of the other civilizations, but it had brought them here safely. "Sir," Park Jin said, his voice tight with worry, "those terms they offered us, they're not really terms at all. They're essentially making every human being a slave." Kim Dae sat down in his simple chair and began organizing his papers. His expression remained calm and pleasant, the same look he had maintained throughout the entire 3-hour meeting. "Yes," he agreed quietly, "they are." 3 months had passed since Ambassador Kim Dae's first meeting with the Galactic Council, and the situation around Earth was getting worse every day. Commander Lee Bo stood on the bridge of Research Station Alpha 7, drinking his morning coffee while watching 50 enormous Vortak warships practice their attack formations just outside human space. The alien ships were massive, each one the size of a small city. Their hulls were black and covered in spikes, designed to look as threatening as possible. Energy weapons glowed along their sides like angry red eyes, and Lee Bo knew that each ship carried enough firepower to destroy an entire planet. "They're doing the same thing as last week," said Dr. Choi Min from her position at the sensor station. She was a young woman who had joined the research team only 6 months ago, fresh from the academy on Earth. "Every Tuesday morning they show up, wave their guns around for 2 hours, then leave." Lee Bo nodded, still sipping his coffee. He was a calm man in his 40s who had served in the human space fleet for 20 years. Nothing seemed to surprise him anymore. "They want us to know they're watching. They want us to feel scared." On the main viewing screen, the Vortak ships moved in perfect formation, like a deadly dance in the darkness of space. Their weapons kept powering up and down, never quite locking onto the human station but making it clear they could destroy it in seconds if they wanted to. At another workstation, technician Yang Su was monitoring communications from across human space. She was barely 25 years old but had already become one of their best intelligence officers. Her job was to track all the strange things happening in human territory. "Sir," Yang Su called out, "we just received another message from those pirates who have been attacking our cargo ships. They want us to pay them protection money, or they say they'll start hitting passenger vessels too." Lee Bo walked over to look at her screen. The message was written in basic galactic common language, but something about it felt wrong. "What kind of weapons are these pirates using?" "That's the weird part," Yang Su said, pulling up weapon signature data. "Their energy cannons match Void Hunter military technology exactly. Not similar, identical. It's like they're using the same factories." Dr. Choi Min looked up from her sensors. "And their timing is suspicious too. Every time the Vortak ships do their intimidation dance out here, the pirate attacks increase. It's almost like someone is coordinating everything." Lee Bo wasn't surprised. In the 3 months since the Galactic Council meeting, human colonies and research stations had reported similar patterns all across their territory. The Iron Hegemony sent probe ships to scan every human facility, claiming they were conducting routine safety inspections. The Stellar Dominion's energy beings had started appearing near human power plants, saying they were curious about primitive energy production. The Celestial Republic's psionic agents were the worst. They would arrive at human settlements claiming to be tourists or researchers, but people reported strange dreams and headaches after they visited. Some humans said they felt like someone was trying to read their minds. "What should we do about the pirate demands?" asked Yang Su. "They want an answer within 24 hours. Lee Bo pulled up the latest diplomatic messages from Earth. Ambassador Kim Dae was still meeting with representatives from all 5 galactic powers, still maintaining his polite smile even as their demands became more aggressive each week. "We follow the same protocol we always follow," Lee Bo said calmly. "We file a formal complaint through proper diplomatic channels. We request mediation from neutral parties. We ask for an investigation into these pirate attacks. And we continue operating normally." Yang Su looked frustrated. "Sir, with respect, filing complaints hasn't stopped them from getting bolder. Last week they hit 3 cargo ships. This week it was 7. Intelligence reports suggest they're planning something much bigger soon." "I'm sure they are," Lee Bo agreed, his voice staying perfectly calm and measured. He had read the same intelligence reports. The galactic powers were growing impatient with humanity's refusal to immediately accept their tributary status. Their pressure campaigns were escalating. On his personal communication device, Lee Bo reviewed the latest message from Ambassador Kim Dae. Even after months of increasingly explicit threats, the ambassador continued to maintain cordial relations with their would-be masters. His reports were always polite and optimistic, talking about ongoing negotiations and mutual understanding. Dr. Choi Min was monitoring the Vorthack ships as they prepared to leave. They're powering down their weapons and moving into jump formation. Same as always, they show up, scare us for exactly 2 hours, then disappear. It's psychological warfare, Yang Su said, watching her intelligence screens. They want us to feel helpless. They want us to beg for protection. Li Bo finished his coffee and set the cup down on his desk. Outside the station windows, the Vorthack warships were beginning to fade as they jumped to faster-than-light speed. But he could already see new shapes approaching in the distance, more probe ships from the Iron Hegemony, coming to conduct another round of their routine scans. "Sir," asked Dr. Choi Min, "doesn't it bother you that we just sit here and let them do whatever they want?" Li Bo smiled, and for just a moment his expression reminded her of Ambassador Kim Dae's diplomatic photographs. "We follow our orders," he said quietly. "We remain polite. We continue our research. We wait." The new probe ships were getting closer, their scanning beams already reaching out toward the human station. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was different from any meeting before. The massive chamber hummed with excited energy as representatives from thousands of worlds gathered to watch what they believed would be humanity's final surrender. Emergency sessions were rare and only called when war was about to begin. Ambassador Kim Dae walked through the great doors alone. For the first time in 18 months, he had no security guards with him, no advisors whispering in his ear, no assistants carrying documents. He wore the same simple black suit he always wore, and he carried only a small leather folder in his hands. The 5 galactic powers sat in their elevated positions around the central platform, looking more confident than ever before. They had finally created the perfect excuse to destroy humanity, and everyone in the room knew it. The Void Hunter representative stood first, its shape flowing like liquid metal as it spoke. Today it had chosen to look more threatening than usual, taller, with sharper teeth and claws that gleamed under the chamber's lights. Its voice echoed off the walls as it began its presentation. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," the shapeshifter announced, "we gather today because humanity has finally shown its true nature. 3 days ago, human pirates attacked one of our peaceful trade convoys, killing 847 innocent beings and stealing cargo worth millions of credits." Holographic displays appeared around the chamber, showing what looked like security footage of the attack. Small, primitive human ships swarmed around a large Void Hunter cargo vessel, firing weapons and boarding it. The images were perfect, detailed, and completely fabricated. "We have witnessed testimony from survivors," the Void Hunter continued, its form rippling with fake emotion. "We have weapon signatures that match human technology exactly. We have communication intercepts proving the attack was planned and coordinated." The Vorthack representative clicked its approval, its red eyes glowing brighter with excitement. "This is what we expected from the beginning. Humans cannot be trusted. They pretend to be civilized, but they are just clever animals." The massive insectoid creature stood up, its 4 arms gesturing dramatically. "We demand immediate reparations of 50 billion credits. We demand the right to establish military bases on every human world. We demand complete tributary status with no further delays." The Iron Hegemony's collective voice joined in, hundreds of cybernetic beings speaking as one. "Our patience has reached its end. Compliance within 72 hours, or face complete pacification of all human territories." The Stellar Dominion's energy being flickered with colors that showed its excitement. Such a disappointing end to what could have been a peaceful relationship. But some species simply cannot learn their place. All around the chamber, thousands of alien representatives murmured their agreement. Many had bet money on how long it would take for humans to break, and the lucky winners were already calculating their profits. Finally, all eyes turned to Ambassador Kim Dae, who had been standing quietly at the small speaker's podium during the entire presentation. He looked exactly the same as he had 18 months ago during their first meeting, calm, pleasant, and completely unworried by the accusations against his species. "Esteemed colleagues," Kim Dae began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space despite speaking in a normal tone. "Humanity has spent the past 18 months attempting to build relationships based on mutual respect and cooperation with all of your civilizations." He opened his small leather folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. The aliens in the chamber exchanged amused glances. Even now, the primitive human was using actual paper instead of holographic displays. "During this time, we have filed 847 formal complaints through your established diplomatic channels regarding various aggressive actions taken against human territory and citizens," Kim Dae continued, reading from his paper with the same polite tone he always used. The Void Hunter shapeshifter made a dismissive gesture. Your complaints are meaningless now, human. You have committed an act of war. Kim Dae looked up from his paper and smiled, the same warm expression he had maintained throughout every meeting, every threat, every insult over the past year and a half. We have requested official mediation 23 times through neutral parties, he continued as if the shapeshifter hadn't spoken. We have offered 156 different compromise solutions that would have allowed all of our civilizations to coexist peacefully and prosperously. The stellar dominion's energy being flickered with impatience, its colors shifting to angry reds and oranges. Get to the point, human. Your time for excuses has ended. Kim Dae folded his paper carefully and placed it back in his folder. His smile never changed, never wavered, never showed even a hint of fear or anger despite being surrounded by beings who could destroy his entire species. We have been polite, he said simply. We have been patient. We have been diplomatic in every interaction. We were hoping that you would reciprocate these basic courtesies. He paused for a moment, looking around the chamber at the thousands of alien faces staring down at him. The silence stretched for several seconds. Since you have chosen not to, Kim Dae continued in exactly the same pleasant tone, we feel it is only fair to warn you. The Celestial Republic's ancient psionic representative leaned forward with sudden interest, its starlight eyes focusing intently on the human ambassador. We were just being polite, Kim Dae said quietly, until now. The chamber erupted in laughter. The sound was deafening, thousands of aliens from hundreds of different species all laughing at the same time. The Vorthax's harsh chittering mixed with the Void Hunter's rippling amusement and the mechanical sounds from the Iron Hegemony. Only Kim Dae remained perfectly still and quiet, his pleasant expression completely unchanged. Admiral Song Ho had been a prisoner on the Vorthax flagship for 2 days, brought there to witness what his captors called the final lesson for humanity. He stood on the bridge in simple prison clothes, his hands bound behind his back, watching the largest military fleet in galactic history prepare to destroy his home. Over 50,000 warships surrounded him in the darkness of space. The Vorthax Empire had brought 15,000 of their massive dreadnoughts, each one bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The Iron Hegemony contributed 12,000 cybernetic vessels that moved like a single deadly organism. The Stellar Dominion's energy ships glowed like miniature stars, ready to burn entire solar systems. The Void Hunters brought shape-shifting vessels that could become anything they needed to be. Even the ancient Celestial Republic had sent 8,000 of their psionic warships. Look well, human, said Commander Zektar, the Vorthax officer in charge of Song Ho's captivity. The insectoid creature's red eyes glowed with satisfaction. Your people chose war instead of peace. Now you will watch them learn the price of defiance. Song Ho said nothing. He had been the admiral of Earth's small defense fleet until his capture during a scouting mission. He knew the official human fleet had only 200 ships, all of them outdated and underpowered compared to galactic standards. By every measure, humanity was about to be destroyed. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of human space, expecting to find desperate colonies building last-minute defenses. Instead, they found empty darkness where human settlements should have been. Sir, reported the Vorthax sensor operator, its voice clicking with confusion. The human colonies we surveyed last month? They're not there anymore. Commander Zektar's mandibles clicked together in annoyance. Destroy them yourself, did they? Humans are even more pathetic than we thought. But Captain Nam Gil of the Iron Hegemony, who was connected to the fleet's entire sensor network through his cybernetic implants, raised a metal hand for attention. No, Commander. Not destroyed. They're simply absent. As if they were never there at all. Song Ho watched the tactical displays and felt his heart start to beat faster. Something was very wrong, but not in the way his captors expected. I'm detecting massive orbital installations, Nam Gil continued, his electronic voice carrying a note of uncertainty that Song Ho had never heard from the normally confident collective. Unable to classify their purpose or technology. Energy signatures are completely incomprehensible. On the main viewing screen, Song Ho could see what looked like Earth's familiar moon in the distance. But as he watched, the surface began to split and unfold like a giant metal flower opening its petals. What emerged from inside was a structure so large and complex that it made the entire assembled alien fleet look like tiny toys floating in a bathtub. Admiral, came Dr. Parkey's voice from the science station. She was another human prisoner, a researcher who had been captured while studying alien technology. Her voice was carefully controlled, but Song Ho could hear the excitement beneath her calm tone. You need to see this data. Those human trade routes we've been monitoring for months, they weren't simple roads through space like we thought. She transferred her readings to the main display, and Song Ho's eyes widened. The primitive human infrastructure that the galactic powers had been cataloging and dismissing wasn't infrastructure at all. It was a network of something far more advanced, carefully disguised to look harmless and backward. The installations we documented were deliberately shown to us, Parky continued. What we're seeing now, this was hidden the entire time. Around the fleet, space itself began to change. What had appeared to be empty vacuums started to bend and fold like fabric being twisted by invisible hands. From these distortions, massive constructions began to appear, not ships exactly, but structures that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially somewhere else entirely. Song Ho watched in amazement as matter itself seemed to flow and reshape before his eyes. Metal became energy, energy became something else, and everything moved according to rules that made the alien sensors scream with warning alarms. Ships began emerging from what everyone had thought was empty space. Not hundreds or thousands, but countless vessels that appeared from dimensions the galactic powers didn't know existed. Each human ship was sleek and elegant, built with technology that operated outside the known laws of physics. Commander Zektar backed away from the viewing screen, his forearms trembling with something Song Ho realized was fear. This is impossible. Our intelligence reports said humans were primitive. We're decades behind our technology. Captain Nam Gil was interfacing frantically with his fleet's computers, trying to understand what they were seeing. Our scans show energy patterns that don't match any known science. Their defensive systems are generating readings that shouldn't be possible. The communication system activated, and Ambassador Kim Dae's familiar voice filled the bridge. But now his words carried a weight that made everyone listen carefully. Honored representatives of the galactic powers, he said in the same polite tone he had always used. You mistook our restraint for weakness. You mistook our diplomacy for fear. You mistook our courtesy for submission. Song Ho smiled despite being a prisoner. He recognized something in the ambassador's voice that he had never heard before, not anger, but a quiet confidence that spoke of hidden strength finally being revealed. We are a young species, but we are not naive, Kim Dae continued. We have been preparing for this conversation since the day we first looked up at the stars and wondered who else might be out there. The human fleet didn't move to attack. They simply waited in perfect formation, their presence alone rewriting everything the galaxy thought it knew about power, technology, and the small blue planet called Earth. Admiral Song Ho was still standing on the bridge of the Vortak flagship when something impossible happened. One moment he was watching the massive human fleet in the distance, and the next moment a human officer was standing right next to him on the alien bridge. The man had simply appeared out of thin air, as if he had walked through an invisible door. He wore a simple gray uniform with no weapons visible, and he looked completely calm despite materializing in the middle of an enemy warship surrounded by hostile aliens. Greetings, the human officer said politely to the stunned Vortak command crew. His voice was friendly, like someone meeting neighbors at a peaceful gathering. I apologize for the intrusion, but we need to discuss some new arrangements. Commander Zektar stumbled backward, his forearms reaching for his weapons. But when he tried to draw his plasma rifle, nothing happened. The weapon wouldn't respond to his commands. Around the bridge, every alien officer discovered the same thing. Their weapons had simply stopped working. I am General Kang Su of the Human Defense Corps, the officer continued, still speaking in that same pleasant tone. Please don't be alarmed. Your weapons are not damaged, just temporarily disabled for everyone's safety. Song Ho looked around in amazement. The air on the bridge, which had always been thin and difficult for him to breathe, suddenly felt fresh and clean. The temperature adjusted to something comfortable. Even the lighting became softer and more natural. It was as if the human had brought a piece of Earth with him. Through the ship's communication system, Song Ho could hear similar conversations happening throughout the massive alien fleet. Human representatives were appearing on every single vessel, all of them speaking politely and respectfully to confused alien crews. On the Stellar Dominion's energy ships, Captain Park Min was explaining to beings made of pure light that their power systems were now running more efficiently than ever before. We've made some small improvements to your energy converters, she said cheerfully. You should notice better performance and lower maintenance needs. Aboard the Iron Hegemony vessels, Major Kim Tae was helping cybernetic beings whose implants had suddenly begun working better than they had in years. Our technology is compatible with yours, he explained as their enhanced senses came online. We thought you might appreciate the upgrades. The Void Hunter ships were perhaps the most confused. Their shape-shifting crews found that their forms were more stable and comfortable than they had ever been. Lieutenant Choi Bo stood among them, smiling peacefully. "We're not here to conquer anyone," she explained to the bewildered shapeshifters. "We're here to renegotiate our relationships." Back on the Vortak flagship, General Kong Su was helping the insectoid crew with medical issues they didn't even know they had. The ship's medical bay activated systems that began treating diseases and injuries that had been ignored for years. "This is impossible," Commander Zektar clicked, watching his crew become healthier and more comfortable than they had been in decades. "Your technology was primitive. We scanned everything. We cataloged your capabilities." General Kong Su nodded understandingly. "Yes, you did. We showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. We've learned that sometimes it's better to let others underestimate you until the moment comes to reveal the truth." Around the bridge, food synthesizers that had been producing basic military rations for years suddenly began creating meals perfectly suited to each crew member's biology and preferences. The Vortak officers found themselves eating foods that reminded them of home worlds they hadn't seen in decades. Admiral Song Ho watched his former captors gradually realize that they were now prisoners themselves, but prisoners being treated better than they had ever treated each other. The humans weren't using force or threats. They were simply making it clear that resistance was pointless while simultaneously making surrender as comfortable as possible. "How many of you are there?" asked Dr. Park Hee, the human scientist who had also been a prisoner. She was now helping to coordinate the peaceful takeover of the ship's systems. "Enough," General Kong Su replied with a gentle smile. "We've placed representatives on all 50,000 vessels in your fleet. Everyone is safe, everyone is comfortable, and everyone is going to go home to their families when this is finished." Within 72 hours, the largest military armada in galactic history had been completely neutralized without a single shot being fired. No aliens had been killed or seriously injured. Most of them were actually healthier and happier than they had been when they arrived, thanks to human medical technology that operated like magic. The demonstration was clear to everyone involved. Humanity could have destroyed the entire fleet in minutes if they had wanted to. Instead, they chose to show mercy and offer friendship. 2 weeks later, a new session of the Galactic Council convened. The same massive chamber that had once echoed with laughter at humanity's weakness now buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from across the galaxy waited to hear what the humans would demand. Ambassador Kim Dae entered the chamber exactly as he always had, alone, carrying his simple leather folder, wearing his plain black suit. His expression remained as pleasant and friendly as ever, showing no signs of anger or revenge despite months of insults and threats. He took his place at the speaker's podium, opened his folder and pulled out a new set of documents. These were not surrender terms or lists of demands. They were partnership agreements. "Honored colleagues," he began in the same polite tone he had always used, "we still prefer diplomacy to warfare. We still believe in the power of courtesy and mutual understanding between different species and civilizations." He gestured to the treaty documents that were being distributed throughout the chamber. "But we also believe in being prepared for any situation that might arise. Humanity will be happy to work with the Galactic Council as equals, not as subjects or masters. We hope this arrangement will be satisfactory to everyone." The terms were surprisingly fair. An end to the tributary system that had enslaved weaker species for centuries. Genuine cooperation based on mutual respect rather than fear. Shared technology that would benefit everyone instead of just the powerful. The galaxy would be stronger working together than it had ever been when divided into rulers and subjects. As the session concluded with unanimous approval from representatives who had no choice but to accept, the human motto began spreading across the stars. Traders carried it to distant markets, diplomats shared it in negotiations, and soldiers whispered it in barracks across 1,000 worlds. "We were just being polite. Until now."